Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Jen. I'm here in suburban coastal central Florida and I want to share with you a full tour of my vegetable garden in the backyard and my fruit trees that I've got growing all around the house. You don't want to miss the fruit tree section because I've got two brand new trees that I ordered based on a recommendation from one of my subscribers. Let's get into it. We're starting out on my back porch, so it's mostly a shaded area, although it does get a lot of afternoon sun. Over here I've got chives, thyme, and oregano going. These are some perennial herbs that I planted for the purpose of creating a nice border around a mulch bed. And I may still do that, although I've noticed that thyme does not seem to handle full sun in Florida all that well, so I may want to rethink that. Over here I've got a variety of starts. These are kind of like my backup plants for something in my long raised bed that might not go as planned and I might need a backup. It's also my oldest daughter is in second grade and they're doing what's called a market day at school where they have to create something and bring it in to sell. And so she actually planted a lot of bush beans and cucumbers that we've got labeled and everything over here that she's gonna put in some solo cups to bring to school tomorrow. So that was a fun project. She really loved it. It was nice to kind of teach her how to sow some seeds and do a fun project for school. Over here we've got two different methods of growing sweet potato slips. I'm really excited about the sweet potato slips because I can see the sprouts coming up on the mason jar method. I can also see sprouts coming up on the soil method right here. And I've even already had a slip with roots grow from this portion and I planted it in the garden. I'll show you that in the raised bed in a little while. But this is gonna be like my pride and joy this summer because there's only a limited number of vegetables that we can grow in the summer because the heat is so hot here in Central Florida. So sweet potatoes, I love to eat them and pretty soon I'm gonna love to grow them. Over here we've got more plants that I just planted today. It may be a little late on some of them, but I did it anyway. I have plans to change my raised beds on the side of the garden. I'll show you that in a little while. So I'm adding 3 2-foot by 8-foot long raised beds, but I can't actually do it until Vigo Garden ships the products that I ordered, and they're not estimated to ship until mid-May. So I figured the best thing that I could do to prepare for that was start some seeds so that I've got something ready to go in the garden when it gets here. Right here we've got mint. My daughter and my niece were just munching on these mint leaves all last weekend when they came to celebrate my birthday. I feel like it's doing well in part shade as long as it's watered properly. And this wine bottle upside down into a terracotta watering spike is working really well. Let's move on to the long raised bed and I'll show you a big variety of plants I've got going in there. Now, before we get too far into talking through all the different vegetables I've got going in the raised bed back here, I just want to explain why I've got so many empty squares in there. I just recently purchased all of the Vigo Garden seed starting cells and trays because I've realized that I'm a little bit disenchanted with direct sow for vegetables and I'd like to do a lot more seed starting and transplanting. So the last time I harvested a big round of radishes and carrots out of this raised bed, I was planning to transplant something from my seed starting cell. However, those starts are just now getting past the point where they're getting their first set of true leaves and coming up on time to transplant, so I haven't done it yet. In the future, I'd like there to be very minimal time between harvesting something like a radish and a carrot and leaving a blank square in there and then putting a transplant in there, but it's just not where I'm at yet. Now let's get to the fun part where I walk through all the vegetables I've got going in the garden. You guys have got to see this Brussels sprout plant. I started it from seed about 6 months ago actually, and I think I'm about ready to harvest. These are getting really big. I was waiting until the sprouts were big enough that they were kind of touching on the stem, and I think I'm at that point. So maybe this weekend I'll harvest them and cook them for dinner. And then we've got several squares of yellow onions and red onions. And this is also, I also started yellow onions and red onions from seed back in October. But I made a mistake. I didn't do, I guess, enough research about what types of, what varieties to plant, and I should have planted short day onions. I'm gonna just give them this season, let them grow, and then pull them. Some of them actually are pretty good size. Let me show you up close. This one's actually growing pretty good. So it's not a total failure. They definitely need a lot of time. I may start with some starts next time. Right here I've got 4 plants of bush beans, and they seem to be doing well. I've actually been pulling some of the beans a little early to try to encourage growth, and it seems to be working well. The plant looks healthy. There's a couple spots that maybe look dry, but it doesn't appear to have any diseases or anything like that. The last time I planted bush beans, I was fighting bean rust from the get-go, so this is a big improvement. Right here we've got sweet basil. I actually have never planted sweet basil before this. I had always opted for the Italian Genovese variety, and this one looks like it's doing really, really well. So I don't know why I ever picked Italian Genovese versus sweet basil, so I may actually end up choosing sweet basil more often. I've also got some chive plants right here. Back here, I went out on a limb and I bought some lavender. It's French lavender that I bought as a start from my local nursery. Really just because I've been looking to try some lavender. I don't think it's gonna do well here, but sometimes, you know, we just try things anyway. Right here we have a San Marzano tomato plant. This is a determinate variety, and there's another one right behind it. And I'm loving these tomato plants this year. So right here is my eggplant, and I've heard eggplants can last years actually in a garden in Central Florida, as long as you protect it against any frost you might see in the winter, and potentially use a shade cloth in the summer if needed. So I'm gonna try to take really good care of this eggplant and see if I can keep it around for years. The same goes for the shishito pepper plant that I've got back here. This thing is already producing, not very many yet, but I'm excited about it. Shishito peppers are so good. If you just saute them in a cast iron pan with a little oil and garlic, it's so good. This right here, I think, is the beginning of an eggplant. Let me see if I can lift the leaves and shine a light on it right here. It's very young, but it's prickly. I think something's happening inside that bud. Am I the only one who eats shishito peppers straight off the plant? They're just refreshing. Right here I've got some carrots that are about ready to pull. I know it's too hot now for sowing carrots, but these are just finishing up, letting them get to the proper ripeness and, you know, let them get big enough to pull. I've got another young kale plant back here. I've been trying to pack my plants a little more densely, just because I feel like they can handle it. I can always prune leaves away if I need to, or pull a plant entirely, but that seems to be a better option than having too much empty space in your garden. If you guys watched my DIY herb garden video the other day, you'll notice I still have this herb garden in the middle of my backyard because I have not figured out how to pick that thing up. So I don't know how long it's gonna sit there. We'll see. The grass is definitely dead underneath. It's a little bit of a challenge for me to film on a 17-inch high raised bed where I feel like I'm talking to you instead of just showing you plants. I'm doing my best. Let me know if you liked those camera angles right before this or not. For now, I'm gonna flip it around because some of these cucumber plants just look so pretty. They're the star of the show. So right there is the eggplant and shishito pepper I was just talking about, and the carrots, and then we've got the oregano, a ton of parsley. The parsley is just going crazy. Nasturtium. There's more carrots behind this parsley, growing nicely. And there's some more kale back there. I've been eating the kale actually for lunch. There's some cilantro. Right here we've got a cabbage that looks like it's kind of failing to launch. I probably started that too late. There's some pretty marigolds. And take a look at these beautiful cucumbers. I believe this is the Marketmore variety, but I planted both Marketmore and Boston Pickling and I failed to label them. So I think it's Marketmore. Over here we've got my lawn gnome that I painted at a kid's birthday party. I know, it's so cute. And then we've got thyme, nasturtium actually that doesn't look so hot. And back there we've got some yellow squashes that also don't look so hot. So this raised bed over here actually uses drip irrigation with reclaimed water. We've had some low pressure in the reclaimed water system since it's been so dry lately. So I think actually my plants are not getting as much water as I think they're getting based on the controller that I've got. So I probably need to do some hand watering. I think that's why the yellow squash and those nasturtiums right there are suffering. Back here we've got cabbage. It's actually forming a nice head. Seems to be doing well. I gave it some blood meal a couple weeks ago. Here is celery that's been going forever. I also gave that some blood meal recently. And here is my first planted sweet potato slip. It seems to be drooping a little. I think it's probably not getting enough water for the same reason that the yellow squash is not getting enough water. Here we've got another cabbage, and we've got some, I think these are the Boston pickling cucumbers back here, and they're not doing well. We've got kale. I will say when I was eating the kale, well, when I was cleaning the kale, I was noticing a lot of like eggs. Yeah, like right here. This is what I had to keep cleaning off my kale. So, PSA, do a good job when you wash your greens. Don't eat that. Right here I've got this big planter of garlic, and actually some of it looks like it's going to be really big when I harvest it this summer. So I think I'm really excited about this. Now before I keep going, I want to kind of help you understand the changes that I'm going to make to the garden. I'm standing on my lanai right now, back to the backyard, and if you look at this side along my fence, I've got a 21.5-foot long raised bed, and I love the look of that. However, it's kind of too long because there's some plants in the middle that are hard to access. It's hard for me to reach over and access all the way in the back. So I want to do something similar on the other side of my backyard. However, I don't want it to be one giant stretch of raised garden. I want to do 3 8-foot long raised beds so that I can access from the side. Let me show you that side of the yard, and you can see where it stands now. There's this raised bed and the garlic pot and my DIY herb garden in the middle of the yard. And then if you look over here, you can see I've got some small Vigo Garden herb planters right now. And so I bought the extension kits, and they're shipping early May. So I should be able to reconfigure the raised beds and put them against the fence and extend them in the middle of May. I'll make a video about that project. And also this random raised bed that I stuck in the middle of the yard that my husband makes fun of me for. It's well, he makes fun of the placement, and I think I deserve it. It's 3.5 by 6.5 feet right now, but I can reconfigure this raised bed. This is what I love about, this is one of the things I love about Vigo Garden. Do you see how this is like a panel? It's a flat panel in between 2 corners. I'm going to remove this panel and put it on the other side to make it narrower and longer, and then it'll be a 2-foot by 8-foot long raised bed. And then I'm going to shift it over to the side of the fence. This is going to be a miserable project because I have to shovel out the soil onto a tarp probably, reconfigure this, and then put it over there, and then put all the soil back in. It's going to be a fun video. It's probably going to take me a few days to do it. But because I plan to do all that in the next month, I've been letting some of these things be harvested out of this raised bed and then keeping it empty. So anyway, I've got a variety of herbs. There's parsley, oregano, cilantro. I'm going to try to save what I can whenever I do that project. I'm not sure how it's going to work. I've got kohlrabi that's still finishing up, and shallots. The shallots I'm actually going to be sad about if I lose during that process, but we'll see. I think it's time to just bite the bullet and move the raised beds how I want them in my yard. Now let's get into talking about fruit trees. I just bought these sugar bell mandarin trees from Backyard Citrus Trees based on a recommendation of one of my subscribers because they're specifically grown on a swingle rootstock, which improves its resistance to citrus greening. I'll put a link to that article in the description box below so you can see for yourself how swingle rootstock and sugar belle mandarin is one of the best varieties to plant in Florida to fight against citrus greening. And I've got my hands on 2 of them. Let's take a look. Now I just up potted them. I bought 1 gallon semi-dwarf, so they're gonna be like 12 to 15 feet tall. I just up potted them to about a 3 gallon container because I'm not really sure where I wanna plant them yet. They're over here next to like my water heater and gas line and everything right now. I know it's not very visually appealing. This whole side yard is a project that I need to work on. It's also my pot graveyard, because you're not really a gardener if you don't have a pot graveyard, right? If we walk right through this fence on the side of my house, you can see my mango tree. I have no mangoes growing anymore since the squirrels got mine, but the tree itself is looking pretty healthy. It's looking a little thirsty. I can see some browning on the leaves, so I'll give it a little more water today. Let's take a look at the Eureka lemon tree. Now this one has lots of lemons growing for the first time. And there's even more right here and more. There's a ton, honestly. They're all over the tree. Now I do believe that this tree has citrus greening. I was emailing back and forth with some of the master gardeners at the local ag extension office to see if I should be removing this tree because I just got the sugar belle mandarins, or if I can leave it be, and if I were to dispose of it, how should I dispose of it? And they actually said some interesting things. Number one was they said just leave it in the ground. It's not going to make a difference for your sugar belle mandarin. And number two is if you choose to get rid of the tree, you can just put it in your regular yard waste, which I was kind of surprised about. I thought we would have to control the diseased trees a little bit more than that. Now I recently moved my strawberries. I used to have them on my fence in the back corner of the house, but I moved them to my front porch just because I thought I was ready to move things around in my garden, and I think I like this spot better actually. Let me give you a close-up look. And I planted some nasturtiums in there as well, so they're kind of young. They're just young nasturtiums, but they're going in the same spot as my strawberries. Here's my strawberry plants on my wall trough with my upside down wine bottle in a watering spike and my nasturtiums. Over there I've got the same thing, and on the back, on that corner over there, I've got another one going. So I think it's pretty pleasant to look at up here, although these plants seem to be really thirsty. The strawberries seem to be really thirsty, so I bought more terracotta watering spikes to give it more water, but I don't drink wine often enough to have wine bottles laying around, so I asked my friends for some help in donating some wine bottles. So I should have some wine bottles to help water the strawberries in the next couple days. That's it for today's garden tour, guys. Let me know in the comments if you like this video, and see you next time.